A man on a mission, driven to get on TV and tell it like it is.
I did get to see a lot of cross-section of sportscast on television. And I said, gee, you know, I don't know if I can talk like that, but I said, I think I have more knowledge than that.
And from the beginning, they tried to stop him. First, they banned him from the team plane.
He called me and told me, and he says, hey, I got good news for you. You're off the plane again for life plus 10 years. And he said, the extra 10 is just in case you're the second Lazarus. He said, you're still off for 10 years if you come back to life after you die.
Next, they tried to drown him in ice water. Finally, they tried to suffocate him with a silly paper bag. But like the second Lazarus, he just kept coming back for more.
Having grown up on the streets of New Orleans and become part of the scene here, he knows how we think down here.
He's Buddy D. He's back. And this time, it's forever.
Live from the foot of Canal Street, it's Hey Buddy D.
When it comes to talking football, Buddy D's the one.
You're on the air, Bob.
Always got an opinion.
Now you got it, baby.
Like it is, he may be hard to understand.
What's that supposed to mean?
But hey, Buddy D, you're the man.
Tonight, highlights from the first preseason game with Green Bay. Vince Marinello looks at Mario Bates. Steven Tyler pays tribute to Steve Stonebreaker. Ken Trahan explores the kicking game. And Jerome Barkham reports on the defense. Plus, Buddy Vince and NFL draft analyst Mike Detillier take calls from viewers at home.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see the Saints go to the Super Bowl. I could get more tickets. Better bring out the straitjackets. We got a full moon tonight.
Oh, hot. But don't sweat it. Beat the heat with a big 15 by 24 family-size swimming pool from Hawaiian Pools for as little as $369. Hawaiian Pools are installed free on your ready site.
Good evening and welcome to the second season of Hey Buddy D. I'm Buddy Diliberto. It's also the 29th season of the New Orleans Saints. 29 years? Do you realize some people were born the same year the Saints played their first season? Probably now have kids getting ready to graduate from grade school? It's been that long? And they still haven't won a playoff game? Oh, talk about depressing. But let's face it, the first 18 years, you know, you had Curly, Lowry, and Moore around, so, you know, this group that's in there right now, it's really only Tom Benson's 11th year, Jim Moore's 10th year, although Tom Benson's original plan to get to the Super Bowl is now about 5 years behind his stated schedule. Anyway, the Saints kicked off their 95 preseason schedule by losing to the Green Bay Packers yesterday, 27-17, and Vince Marinello has the story.
Well, I told the team it looked like the Keystone Cops. Most of those guys probably don't know who the Keystone Cops were. That's what we look like.
That's Jim Moore describing the way he viewed his team's second-half play against the Packers yesterday. For those too young to know, the Keystone Cops were a slapstick comedy routine, loosely interpreted a group of guys not knowing what they were doing. Moore says that's about right.
That second half just indicated to me with the people that played in that second half, and a lot of those guys are going to make our team. We got an awful lot of work to do. And don't. I'm not saying we played perfect the first half because we didn't. We got a lot of work to do there too.
But in the essence of fairness, when the two teams featured their number one units, the Saints took a 7-3 lead, thanks to the throw-and-catch combination of Jim Everett and Irv Smith. Play capped an 80-yard drive.
Irv Smith. Well, that's a big league catch right there. What an impressive job by the tight ends on this drive.
And when Derek Brown sliced into the end zone, it was 14-3 Saints. Moore was quick to point out, however, the offense was largely responsible for the defense holding its own in the first half.
Well, the first half we didn't look too bad. We weren't on the field much the first half now defensively. That's one thing. You know, the offense controlled the clock quite a bit the first half. Our defense didn't have many plays. I think we had 20 plays. Yeah, so that, you know, that's the best way to play defense. I mean, that's the best defense there is when they're on the sideline.
Then lightning struck the Saints special teams, who were anything but special last year. A 96-yard kickoff return. It was 14-10 Saints at the half. Moore, perhaps trying to hide his true feelings to some extent, downplayed the ineptitude of the Saints' special teams.
There's different guys in there on the punt team. There's different guys in there every time we kick off. There's different guys in there every time we return a kickoff. There's different guys in there every time we take a field goal. You know, so it's not like you got your best 11 in there.
And certainly last but not least, the poor play of the Saints' backup quarterbacks, especially the former LSU star, Tommy Hodson.
I don't think Hodson did very good. Threw 2 interceptions there at the end of the game. That's not good. That's bad. Doug did okay. I thought Tommy would do better than he did.
For Hey Buddy D, I'm Vince Marinello.
Well, what did we really learn about the 1995 New Orleans Saints yesterday that we didn't already know? Not a lot. The Saints offense will be the strength of the team and has the potential to be pretty darn good. Martin Anderson will be missed, especially on kickoffs. The defense is going to take its lumps again, especially if they don't manage to get more push from the defensive linemen. And Joe Johnson's going to have to start playing like a real number one. Special teams looks like it might again be an adventure every Sunday. Start of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Part 4. Perhaps the biggest dose of reality came in the realization that maybe the Saints really don't have a number 2 quarterback. What they may have is 2 number 3 quarterbacks behind Jim Evans. At least Tommy Hodson and Doug Nussmeier looked the part of number 3s against the Packers. Of course, that becomes a lethal dose of football poison only if something should happen to Evans. It'll be interesting to see how the Saints react if Hodson and Nussmeier continue at yesterday's performance level. Would the Saints go shopping for a backup quarterback? Or would they simply roll the dice and say a few extra novenas that Everett stays healthy? Who knows? Everett looked the part of a winner during his brief stay in the game, and that's a good sign because Everett is really back, and last season wasn't just an aberration. Number 1 pick Mark Fields showed the speed and quickness they've been bragging about, and always he seemed to be around the football. That's a big positive. And Ernest Dixon, picked up last year as an undrafted free agent, made some plays on quickness alone, lining up in the place of the injured Ronaldo Turnbull. Anyway, what's happened after that, Jim Moore in the past has had a history of bringing his team out of the preseason gate quickly, compiling a 7-1 record in preseason openers his first 8 years. But Moore is now 0-2 in his last 2 preseason openers, and that's an indication that the once depth that Moore had is gone through age, free agency, expansion draft, and retirement. This is now a team that'll have to keep its fingers and toes and everything else crossed, hoping that the front liners stay healthy for most of the 16-game regular season stretch. Finally, it's only preseason, but what's happening in San Francisco? The 49ers losing back-to-back weeks to the Denver Broncos? Even for practice games, that's the new wrinkle. Next on Hey Buddy D, we'll be joined by our sidekick and our weekly feature on the show, Vince Marinello, and a little later we'll be joined by NFL Analyst Deluxe, Mike Detillier. All that and more coming up when Hey Buddy D continues.
And do this year.
Well, let me say, I've been saying for weeks now, I think they'll be about 9-7, and of course, whenever you give a prediction that far in advance, you sort of have a plus or minus margin error of 1. Well, I've eliminated the plus error of 1. If there's an error in my 9-7 prediction, it'll be on the downside, I think. Looks like another year, same thing. I don't know. You know, the way it is at football now, with a lot of teams suffering from a depth standpoint, injuries become much more of a factor on how teams are going to do. And so consequently, I think it really is a little more difficult to pinpoint a particular season on a particular team. But, you know, you got to do it because that's what everybody talks about. And so consequently, I think 9-7. And like I said, if it's going to be wrong, I think it'll be on the downside rather than the upside.
Well, Buddy, first of all, folks, let me take the opportunity to congratulate you, Buddy, publicly. Buddy has no part in this, folks. This is something that the rest of us are doing. I want to congratulate you on your induction into the Greater New Orleans Broadcasters Hall of Fame, Buddy. Not too many people in there for your career over 30 years, so congratulations to you. You deserve it.
Thank you very much. Vince, John Meekum was invited to the ceremony last night, but he declined.
And I bet he did it with a heavy heart as well. All right, let me say this, but you're talking about the season. It's indeed difficult to pick a season, but, you know, I never saw anything in yesterday's ball game, pro or con, good or bad, that would lead me to change my opinion. I'm with you. 8-8, 9-7, despite the fact that this ball club, as you mentioned in the butteritorial in the start of the show, a lot of question marks in this ball club throughout. They got question marks offensively. I don't care how good Jim Everett is, folks. How many touchdown passes he throws, how many records he sets. They still got to learn how to run the football. They got to run it effectively. That's how you win at Biddy League. That's how you win in the NFL. They have to get that big running back that we'll see hopefully later in the show. They've got to learn how to stop the run on defense. They got new ball players, buddy, new system, new coaching staff, as we saw the 49ers last year. They brought in 6 All-Pros on defense. Took them a half a season before they gelled. Big question mark. We don't know if Ronaldo Turnbull, how effective he's going to be from the outside. The special teams have been an absolute atrocity the last couple of years, and yesterday they didn't ingratiate themselves by their play yesterday.
Another factor, switching to the 4-3 defense, a lot of people, I mean, really good football people, kind of think that with the personnel they got, that the defense will be improved this year, and that's not saying a lot because they were so bad last year.
They have to get better,
but probably it'll be later than sooner. You know, in a sense, and the big question is how much later, because, you know, if you come out the gate slow because of your defense and you're out of the running right away, well, that's going to be a downer season, even if ultimately it ends up 8-8 or 9-7, if 9-7 doesn't get you into the playoffs.
And the worst part about that, buddy, is that they play 3 divisional opponents right off the bat. Tell you what we're going to do, folks. Let's roll the scores from around the National Football League. And, buddy, as you said earlier, there's been some strange things going on in the San Francisco Cap. Can we roll those scores right now? All right, there we are. Our friend Martin Anderson.
54-yard field goal yesterday.
All right, St. Louis over Seattle, you see there. San Francisco, I saw that game last night, buddy. 2 weeks in a row they've lost to Denver. And I'll tell you, last night, they didn't even closely resemble a Super Bowl team, albeit I understand that it's hard to motivate.
But it is a new wrinkle for them.
Yes, it is. Chicago over Carolina, Detroit over New England, the Jets 3 field goals over Tampa Bay. And we see Arizona over Houston, Steve McNair with somewhat less than an auspicious debut last night, Kansas City over Washington. And Oakland over Dallas. Dallas lost a lot of players, buddy. What do you think?
I think Dallas will be. I know a lot of football people think Dallas is going to decline this year. I think Dallas and San Francisco will hook up in the NFC Championship game again.
Well, I think you're right, and I think the game this year, last year, you know, we talked about whoever won the game in the regular season would have a big advantage in the NFC Championship. Last year it was played in San Francisco. The 49ers won it. This year it's being played in Dallas.
And we got one more game coming up tomorrow night. The first Monday night game, kind of give a little intro to the Monday Night Football, although it's not going to be consecutive Monday nights until the season starts, but Minnesota is at San Diego. We're going to continue with Hey Buddy D. Lots more to come, folks. But first, this time out.
Tom Benson selling his dealership to spend more time with the Saints. What do you think? He's the next Meekum?
God, I don't think there could be a next Meekum. Not in our lifetime, anyway. No, my read on that isn't of any negative position right now. I kind of think that at his age, and certainly the dealerships collectively weren't really worth as far as any profit margins concerned what Benson was making on it. The real golden goose for Benson that lays the golden eggs is the New Orleans Saints. And so I think at this stage of his life, in his upper 60s, he's going to, you know, do something that he enjoys life a little more. Now, if he starts to meddle a la Meekum, we'll let you know, but I don't have that read right now.
In other words, what you're saying, buddy, is that you don't think when he rides around on that cart that he's evaluating talent.
Well, he hasn't done it yet. I mean, he might evaluate it in his own mind, but he hasn't, you know, interfered with it yet from that department.
He hasn't made any
not to my knowledge, anyway.
All right, well, you know, buddy, since we were here last with our Hey Buddy D show during the off-season, folks, naturally we were all saddened by the recent death of Steve Stonebreaker, and he was one of the original Saints, as you know, and Steven Tyler offers his tribute to Stoney.
Every day we're bombarded with stories that border on the incomprehensible. But hard as it may be to understand ethnic cleansing or the murder of children, taking one's own life remains mankind's most troubling mystery. Linebacker Steve Stonebreaker had already made a name for himself with the Vikings and Colts when he landed with the expansion Saints in 1967. The first Saints were a brawling bunch of banged-up cast-offs, aging vets, and talented malcontents that head coaches around the league were glad to see become somebody else's problem. For New Orleans and Stoney, it was a natural fit.
He was a gamer. He came to play on Sunday. He might be out drinking beer all week, but I'll tell you what, when they teed it up on Sunday afternoon, Stoney was right in the middle of the fray.
But elevation to ultimate sainthood came after he touched off a brawl in Giant Stadium, defending the honor of teammate Tom Hall, a receiver on the business end of a cheap shot by Giant sideline slacker Greg Larson.
And New Orleans fans will always hold him in their hearts for that action that would happen up there in old Giant Stadium. Because here it was, the big kahuna Giants taking on the little pretenders to the Crown Saints, and we didn't take any crap, man. Oh, we came right out and stuck it right up their Gucci's, and all that jazz.
Nagging injuries finally forced Steve to hang up his cleats in '69, and he soon started giving back to the city that loved him. Long before the networks woke up and began courting the female audience, Stonebreaker was offering skull sessions on Saint strategy, no boys allowed. In the 70s, Stoney published a weekly rag called Grid Week, which featured a familiar name on its masthead. When Buddy lost a bet with Steve on the outcome of a Saint season, Diliberto was forced to liquidate his debt. Stonebreaker's last venture was his Metairie restaurant, a business that in New Orleans is arguably more competitive than pro football. The details are sketchy and perhaps ultimately not important, but friends intimated that the restaurant was finally Steve's undoing.
I never really cared whether it was good or bad what the media wrote or said about Steve Stonebreaker. I just knew that I went on the field and did the best job I could do, and I let it go at that.
Despite what every coach has preached since the days of Walter Camp, football as a metaphor for life has always seemed too pat a notion. When the clock runs out and you're behind on the scoreboard, you can always play again next week. But in life is a one-game schedule. There's no overtime, and sudden death lasts an eternity. So we're left with fond memories, a fading highlight film, and the question, why? Why did Steve Stonebreaker take his life? We'll never really know, but one thing is certain, he'll be sorely missed. This is Steven Tyler for Hey Buddy D.
Nice piece, Steve. And, I like to remember Stoney as a guy that was always, most of the time, cheerful, and it was sort of a practical joker. And one of the things I'll never forget, always on Mondays after the Saints game, everybody at noontime would be at Mitchell Surio's Delicatessen and rehashing what happened. And these were in the horrible Meekum years, and Stoney would all the time try and defend Meekum a little bit, and I'd be, and Mitchell would be the referee and everything. Well, one Monday, place is packed. And I didn't even know he was there. All of a sudden, I hear people screaming and everything, and there's Stonebreaker laid out in front of the main counter, just out. And he's got a sandwich in his hand and a big rubber rat coming out of the sandwich. And what had happened, to play a joke, he had put a rubber rat between the two pieces of bread, and when he took a bite and he realized, play like he realized it was a rat, and he just went. And they had women and people in there that didn't know us and knew what was going on. And God, they said, what kind of place is this that you serve sandwiches with rats in them? You know what I mean? But everybody broke up. So the memory is always one of the
that's the way everybody should remember Steve Stonebreaker, because I never knew Stoney to be in a bad mood. And as all of us, we all have our days, but he always seemed to have an upbeat, and we should remember more of Stoney that way. I think, Buddy, we got some calls.
Yeah, let's take some phone calls. First, we'll go to Taryn in Marrero. Taryn, what can we do for you?
Hi, buddy. Hi, Vince. How you guys doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Okay, my question is, Jim Everett, he's a fine quarterback. Before as a backup, Tommy Hodson and the other guy, they won't work as well. There's a Jack Trudeau and Jim McMahon. Could you give me a reason why they won't try to pick these guys up in the next few weeks?
Well, that's a good question, and certainly if Hodson and Nussmeier perform, say again next week, like they performed yesterday, I think the Saints are going to have to seriously considering that. I think what we'll do there, Taryn, we'll put that answer a little bit on a hold, because we got Mike Detillier as a guest coming up in the next segment, and he's a real sharp NFL analyst, and see who's really out there, because it's a good question, and I just don't think that off of yesterday's performance, if those type of performances continue, that even the Saints would consider going into the season with either one of those guys as number 2.
No, I don't think Moore could possibly be resting easily after he saw that, buddy, because you can forget about the other guy, Tim Rosenbach. He was out of football. He's got the back situation. There's no way in the world, I hope I'm wrong, but Nussbaum, he's a number 3. He's a number 3 quarterback. Tommy Hodson, based on yesterday's performance, obviously has lost whatever he had, and they can't possibly feel good tonight about the situation. I guess they're banking on Everett's health. He's only missed 1 football game in his entire career when he was healthy. So if anything happens to him, buddy, then this is, I don't think a whole lot of teams feel good about their backup quarterback because of the salary cap. But I tell you what, it would be disaster for the Saints if they lost their starter.
All right, let's go to Mark in Gretna. Mark, what we can do?
Hey, man, do you think Vaughn Dunbar is going to fully recover this year or what?
Boy, that would be a real lagniappe and a very nice surprise. Everyone covering training camp has been saying that he's looked like a different back in camp, that he's cutting sharper, he's hitting the holes harder, he's got better running vision, and a few plays he got in yesterday, including one he got for a first down near the goal line, he looked pretty good. That would be a real lagniappe, nice addition.
Of course, he won't beat out narrower base. The guy they're counting on, buddy. But it is a big concern of mine because, as I said earlier tonight, you know yourself, man, you got to be able to run the football. And until the Saints can run the football, they just aren't going to get any better than 8-8 or 9-7.
We'll continue with Hey Buddy D, and our weekly guest will be this week NFL analyst Mike Detillier, and we'll ask him which backup quarterbacks are out there right after this, when the regular season starts.
I think chemistry is just, with the free agency and everything, has really messed up everything as far as that's concerned. But I think every team in the National Football League can say that. Really, defensively is really why my main concern is, and everybody talks about the 4-3 or the 3-4. Talent is more important than philosophy, and right now the Saints just don't have as good a defensive talent as they've had in the past.
Let's take a few more calls. Joe from Lakeview. Joe, you're on Hey Buddy D. Hi, Joe.
How you doing?
Fine.
I just want to bring something up, and y'all can address it. If you go back to the Saints draft, 88, 89, 90, and 91, you'll have a total of 4 players that are still on this team from those 4 years being drafted, and 3 of them came out of 1990. What is the problem? I know it's player evaluation. What can be done to overcome it? I'll hang up and listen to it.
Well, Joe, I'm going to get the input from Mike and Vince on that, but I think that in the last 3 drafts, they seem to have overcome that. It was flat-out bad player evaluation. Some of it was involved in the trade with Steve Walsh, where they gave up a 1, 2, and 3 and didn't even have a shot at a 1, 2, and 3 in that trade. But 93, 94, and 95 drafts, some on the field, some on paper, at least look pretty solid. So it would seem that they have gotten over that bad string of soft drafts.
I agree with you. I think the last 3 drafts have been very good. The one thing you have to look at, when they hired Bill Kuharich to run the scouting department for him, he had never been an NFL scout. He had been in the USFL, but never an NFL scout. And he made some errors in judgment early on in his scouting department. Jim Finks ran things, and Jim had a certain philosophy he ran by, and he didn't go off of it. I think now you see a lot more speed being brought to the lineup, and so things have changed a bit.
Well, I think the free agency also is the reason that a lot of players are no longer there. And, buddy, on your radio show, you were talking the other day about the San Francisco 49ers. Look at the draft choices they've missed recently. Only thing, they're much better at recouping their losses than the rest of the guys are. So whenever they make a mistake, they simply go out and rectify it and recover a lot quicker than the rest of the team.
Let's go to Ron in Lakeview. Ron, you're on Hey Buddy D.
Yeah, buddy. I was curious, with the injury to Ronaldo Turnbull, do you think that Byron Evans is sort of out of the picture, that they'll go for a defensive lineman that'll maybe come open after the cut down, or say a Tim Harris that's out there, or somebody that might come out after the cut down?
Good question, Ryan, and I think right now they're making that evaluation. I know Jim Morris told us the other day on Sports Talk that they kind of had put the Byron Evans thing a little bit on the back burner because of what happened to Turnbull, and now they wanted to see how it was going to shake down the people on the roster right now in replace of Turnbull. So I think what he's asking, maybe you got to need a few more days or even a week to really get the proper answer.
Absolutely, and just really there aren't any defensive linemen out there to pick up. Tim Harris is the best available, and really Tim has had a long history of getting in trouble and everything else. He's a very good pass rusher, I think he wants to go back to San Francisco. He wants to play for the ring, and you really can't blame him. But the defensive linemen are very difficult to get. I really believe this. Don't spend your money on a guy you're going to keep for 3 or 4 weeks and pass up the opportunity to get a good player like Byron Evans. I think the Saints are still the top team for Evans. But don't make that mistake of passing up Evans, because I think he can be a player for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, well, you know, also Tim Harris, the caller, mentioned, I don't think he's Morris' kind of guy.
No, not at all.
He's the kind of guy, you can't say you're going to count on him from season to season. You almost got to wonder whether you can count on him from game to game. Albeit he's a great pass rusher, and I think he's destined for the 49ers, who will pay him, one of those restructured contracts. Buddy?
Lots more to come on Hey Buddy D after this timeout. That's a good question. I got to see. I'm sort of going to wait and see. I think he certainly was a promising back at the end of last season, but Jim Morris says he's a special player. I got to see that first.
Well, buddy, appropriately, our caller's asking about him, and folks, not since Reuben Mays and Dalton Hilliard have the Saints manifested a really what you call a bang-bang running game, so as he has for the past 5 years. Jim Mora goes into this summer camp making the running game a top priority. However, believe this is the year. He is banking on second-year back Mario Bates to be that lightning rod that all good teams seemingly have.
Runs hard this time, shows some power in addition to the...
Moore is counting on Bates staying healthy and hopefully out of nightclub confrontations. If that happens, Bates could be that kind of back who is a cut above.
You know, a back makes things happen, and I think Mario Bates is a special talent. He hasn't done it on a consistent basis yet, but he's got some talent, and if he can stay healthy and play up to his potential, we're going to have an outstanding running back.
Offensive coordinator Carl Smith, on the other hand, defends the running back situation that has prevailed for the past 5 years.
The running game really helped us win when we were winning 11 games and 12 games, and took a lot of shots for not running the ball well enough sometimes. But in every game that you win, the running game is a big part, and it for sure was in our 12-4, 11-5, 10-6 seasons. We ran the ball effectively enough to help us win.
While Jim Everett was putting up record numbers for a Saints quarterback, Smith says while that was good, some of it happened for all the wrong reasons.
We got behind early a lot, and so we threw it. you know, we had some real ugly games, and we had to throw it. So we're hopeful that we can be a real good balanced offense, you know, and you can't win without running. And we feel good about our chances running the ball.
Smith knows all too well, never mind the running back by committee approach. Mario Bates will be counted on to find that alley to freedom more often than anyone else.
Mario looked good in the games when he got back. I think it was the last 8 games, 9 games, whatever it was he played. He had some outstanding games. The Atlanta game, first one back came to 9 when he went for, I think, 146. He looks like a good running back. He's learning more. You know, he was a rookie last year, and we got a block for him. He's got to run. We'll see what happens.
You know, Mario Bates took himself out on the first offensive play of yesterday's game, and it reminded me, a caller told us on Sports Talk last week that it seems that he remembers a number of times last season that Mario Bates was taking himself out of the game. You ever read on that?
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark with Bates. He's got the size, he's got speed, he's got the ability to turn a corner. The question mark is, you know, in that toughness part of a 16-game schedule, can he hold up? And he's taking himself out in a few little nicks and scrapes, and you wonder now how he'll go. That's the big question mark, if Bates is going to be the special back Moore says he is, because when they had Dalton and Reuben, those guys stayed in the entire game.
Well, when you're talking about the special kind of back, Mike and Buddy, you're talking about a guy like Emmitt Smith. There's a guy plays with one hamstring, plays with the other hamstring. I guess if he had a third one, he'd have played on that one. But the point is, this guy doesn't look like it. He sort of reminds me a little bit about Bo Jackson. Remember Bo Jackson? He was chiseled in stone, and the knock on him was that he didn't want to play hurt. This guy could be the same cut.
All right, a few more phone calls. Brian from Homo. Hey, Brian, you're on Hey Buddy G.
Buddy.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, look, I got a question. Why did the Saints decide to go for an offensive player in the second round? We could have went defensive there. We could have let Seattle take Torrance Small, got another first round for defense, and then we lost Sam Mills. We could have had 4 instead of just having one in field.
Brian, they said in the second round, all the good defensive linemen that they wanted were all gone anyway, and believe me, I think they got a pretty good player in the second round with Ray Zealous.
Absolutely. I think he's got a chance to be very similar to Leroy Horde, former St. Aug running back who's now with Cleveland. Power runner, runs well inside, and can catch the football. But they really wanted the defensive player in the second round. He just wasn't there.
All they need, buddy, is a line that who blocks very well from passing, but don't seem to open up too many holes. So if they can get that, then they'll have something in Zealous.
All right, let's go to Stephen in Uptown. Stephen, you're on Hey Buddy D.
Okay, buddy, I have a comment and then a question. I'd like to comment first on the play of Ernest Dixon yesterday. He really surprised me stepping up, getting after the passer. He showed that he had the quickness to do that, but his size seems to be a problem in stopping the run. The Saints seem to still have a little trouble stopping the run. I believe the Packers averaged like almost 5 yards a carry yesterday on him. I just want to know if you think he's the man to step in and fill in for Ronaldo Turnbull, or what do you think he's going to happen with that?
Obviously, they were pleased with the quickness that Dixon showed coming off the corner and Turnbull's plays, and I think they're going to give him a good hard look this week. And I think you're going to see Mark Fields a little bit lining up on certain passing situations coming off of Turnbull's spot.
No, every time I've watched him play, he's always given everything he's had. He's super quick coming off the corner. Only thing is, he's under 240 pounds, and when you hit the regular season, teams are going to put a bullseye on him to run right at him. Now, Ronaldo's not that much bigger either, but I think teams are going to start to run the ball at Dixon to try to slow down that pass rush.
And they still haven't learned how to stop the run. We'll continue with Hey Buddy D right after this.
Something that was good for us for so many years. Every team has a guy like Morton that's leaving, and I mean, we got to move on.
Can number 7 be replaced? Those directly involved sure hope so.
Right now, I'm comfortable with Carey. I got a good gut feeling. It's strictly on gut feeling. He's doing real well in practice, real well in game situations. I mean, he has to still go out and do it, and but my gut feeling is good about Carey right now.
Well, I think when we had Carey here last, I don't think he's ever missed a field goal as a Saint, albeit preseason games, but still he's gone in situations and performed well, and I am confident he has kicked in the league and been good at it.
You know, we're not going to do anything on this club that's going to jeopardize a ball game or two. So if the coaches feel that Carey or Scott Zaretti is the guy, then we're going to the season with one of them and be confident with it.
Scott Zaretti probably has as strong a leg as Morton, if not stronger. His ball just isn't as controlled as Morton's.
Still looming on the horizon as a possibility is Norm Johnson, who, if he signs, would essentially be trading places with Morton.
If you looked at Norm's track record since he's been in Atlanta, he's been very consistent year in and year out, very accurate, and certainly an excellent kicker.
He's got the history, he's got the contract, certainly. But, you know, in the environment today, you've got to be able to fit it. And, you know, when you're close to the cap like we are, you have to make a decision. Do you want to add a kicker for our size, or is there another position that you want to beef up?
As the 1995 season approaches, the Saints are aware that there will never be another great game. They're just hoping to find someone close to his abilities to fill his feet on the play. From La Crosse, Wisconsin, for Hey Buddy D, I'm Ken Trahan.
The brain trust keep talking about Harry Blanchard and this guy and that guy kicking field goals. It's the kickoffs where they're going to miss him, and you saw that yesterday. They weren't getting as much air under the ball on the kickoffs, and I think that's when they're going to miss Martin.
Also, the game-winning kicks under pressure. There are certain guys that can kick the ball real well, but you put them in a pressure situation, and they seem to wilt very, very quickly.
I don't think there's any question, buddy, that Martin's probably been as much a clutch kicker. I'm talking about when the money's on the line as any kicker in National Football League history.
Absolutely.
You'll read how quickly the Falcons reacted to the Saints terminating him within hours signing a contract.
They were tipped off months ago, and they were tipped off by people in the Saints organization. They had this thing right in hand. They were waiting in the wings for the Saints to cut Martin loose, and it was a deliberate...
Not intentionally tipped off by the Saints.
Right, not intentionally. But it's a situation that, you know, they got a little inside information, and they were waiting in the wings to see what will happen.
All right, let's go to our line for Art and Morel. Art, you're on Hey Buddy D.
Hey, buddy, this is Art. If good draft choices are such a concern, how come they didn't try to get any for Morton?
Well, they really thought they were going to re-sign Martin. I think that's probably
Absolutely,
isn't it?
absolutely.
So, I mean, they weren't even thinking trade, and they thought they were going to re-sign him.
I think, Buddy, right now, and Mike, I think you'll agree with me, this is not the age of the kicker. Salary cap has made million-dollar place kickers. I mean, last year, the Kansas City Chiefs, a viable Super Bowl contender last year with a pretty good general manager, Carl Peterson, they thought they were going to the Super Bowl last year. What is the first thing they did? They got rid of Nick Lowry, who's no chopped meat or chopped liver himself. The situation now is the market is you got to get good every down players and hope that you get a kicker that you can win some games with. But the idea is to get every down players.
I agree with that to a certain extent because the way Mora used a kicker, his philosophy was very similar to Carl Peterson. And I think if there's a clone of Jim Mora, it's basically Marty Schottenheimer in Kansas City. And people said, oh, they're going to get rid of Nick Lowry. They brought in Lenny Elliott, who was cut by the Cowboys. They're going to kick less field goals. Last year, they kicked 30 field goals. The year before with Lowry, they kicked 23. So the philosophy stayed absolutely the same, and I think you'll see the same here in New Orleans.
We'll continue with Hey Buddy D right after this.
That defense.
How about it? I'll tell you about the defense. If you fell off your skateboard, you know how you feel? That's how I feel about the defense.
All right, Buddy. At this time, folks, I want to welcome a new addition to our Hey Buddy D staff. He's former New York Jets wide receiver Jerome Barkham, a Gulfport, Mississippi native. Tonight, Jerome makes his debut by looking at the Saints defense.
Under Jim Mora, defense has always been at a premium. That is, until last season. After being one of the marquee defensive units in the league in the early 90s, last year, the Saints fell all the way to the bottom of the proverbial barrel. If they are to resurrect themselves to get back into the playoff picture, Mara knows it will come courtesy of the defense, which he figures to be better this time around.
I know we can't get much worse. When you talk about giving up that over 400 points, which was very unusual for a Saints defense. You know, this is one of the strong points of our defenses the last few years, other than last year, was the fact that we didn't give up a lot of points. Maybe they'd move the ball on us, but we didn't let them in the end zone.
While Mora has tabbed newcomer Money Kiffin as the architect of the newly installed 4-3 defense, it still takes players. To that end, the Saints took a huge step when they acquired the services of Pro Bowl cornerback Eric Allen.
He's a good cover corner. He's a good football player. He's a team leader. He brings a lot to the table, you know, besides just being a good football player. I mean, he's really fit in well. The chemistry's really good. He's good with Vince Clark, Sean Lumpkin, you know, Jimmy Spencer, the other guys. He didn't come in like I know it all type thing, but yet, you know, they're asking him, they want to learn from him. But he's really a class guy.
The Saints are hoping that Allen can do for them what Deion Sanders did for the 49ers.
Eric is a really good cover corner, and it gives you a chance to do a little more blitzing. When you call a blitz and you're a coordinator, it's nice when you got some people covering outside, because there's some people in the NFL can run pretty fast, and they know the snap count. We don't.
One characteristic seemingly prevalent on all good teams is speed. Lots of speed.
Our linemen can all run pretty good, and they're not big, slow guys. They're athletic guys that can run. You know, in our secondary, we got some speed. All our corners can cover. I mean, they all can run. Eric and Tyrone Leggett and Tyrone Hughes and Jimmy Spencer. And we got more speed on defense, and that can make up for some problems. You know, really can.
For Hey Buddy D, I'm Jerome Barkham.
Hey, I like Jerome's style. Did you notice at the beginning when he was talking about the Saints defense, he was standing outside of a graveyard or cemetery? I like that.
Well, Buddy's right about one thing. Speed does kill, and speed does cover up for a multitude of sins. And as we saw with Ernest Dixon, we see with Mark Fields, and, of course, Jimmy Johnson molded 2 Super Bowl teams based on speed. Don't you think, Mike?
Absolutely. Speed and talent. Talent's the name of the game, and the only way this defense is going to get better is to add more talented players than what you had before.
And right now, they haven't done that. I mean, Eric Allen, obviously, probably Mark Fields.
Eric Allen, Mark Fields, I think, certainly are excellent additions, especially Eric. I mean, he is going to change the way you can play defensively. He is a unique cornerback because he can virtually blank one side of the field.
One big question. How much do you feel quickly the loss, if it is for 5 regular season games, of Ronaldo Turnbull in this new defense?
I think it's going to be significant because they were really counting on him to give that push from the right side.
Okay, we'll continue with Hey Buddy D after this time out.
Raising the ticket prices over the past few years, especially since the Saints' performance hasn't improved that much at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sean, one big difference. They were off 71,000 tickets for the 94 season compared to 93. They sold out the first game, but when they started losing right off the bat, the next game fell about 11,000. After that, it fell in the 5 straight home games. It fell into all the way 47%. And I think the same thing will happen this year. They'll probably sell out the 49er game, and unless they get off to a good start, bingo, it'll start falling. Two-edged sword for owner right now. Mike and Metairie. Mike, you're on Hey Buddy D.
Buddy, how many games do you think Jim Mora has to win in order to keep his job this year?
I think he'll keep his job unless it's a real disaster. What do y'all think?
Absolutely. I think, you know, basically Tom Benson has all this trust in Moore. Unless it's a real disaster, 4 or 5 win season, I think Moore is here for next year.
He likes Moore, but I think he feels comfortable with Moore. He's felt comfortable with Moore ever since the late Jim Finks was here. And Moore is his kind of guy, I think, and Benson feels comfortable.
I think 4 or 5 will be the only way that Moore's job will be in jeopardy. Be sure to be back with us on Hey Buddy D next Sunday night at 10 o'clock. Have a good week.